I'll let.
Stay close to it so it hears your voice.
I will.
It's too bad it can't see all the pretty stuff up here. I wonder if it would look better if we did this.
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Okay. This is the Parker house at Christmas time, and this is the year 2020. Been quite an eventful year for America, but thankfully we're still here. My family's all well, and we're just grateful to the Lord for His goodness. But as usual at Christmas time for the last 20-some years, I have written a Christmas story. This year unable to do so, so we're doing a video this year in place of my Christmas story. This year I'll tell you about a friend of mine. His name was Mitchell Harris. And anyhow, Mitchell grew up in the same area that I did in North Carolina. As a matter of fact, Mitchell was born the same year that I was born, in 1956. He was born in March, I was born in May. And get this, he also was born in the Elkin Hospital, the Hugh Chatham Memorial Hospital. Who knows, perhaps his mother, my mother, used the same beds to give birth to their sons on. Possibly so, because Elkin Hospital is not that big. But anyhow, Mitch lived in Elkin, North Carolina, and I lived just north of that in a little area called State Road. But anyhow, I knew Mitch from motorcycle riding. I got to know Mitch. But he told me about his most favorite Christmas when he was a boy growing up. And I thought it was a real neat story that I wanted to share with you. Plus, I got another Christmas story of his attached right to that. But anyhow, Mitchell, and he and I were doing this about the same time. He wanted a motorcycle. He was about 13 years old, and motorcycles had hit the North Carolina area then. It's like everybody was getting them. Everybody was riding motorcycles. Dirt bikes were big time things that come out. Street bikes, guys were buying street bikes. And Mitchell is like me and many other young guys. We wanted a motorcycle. So Mitch, he worked part-time jobs wherever he could get them, mowing yards, working on farms, working some of the stores in Elkin, various things he did to get money. And also, he saved every bit that he got. As a matter of fact, he wanted the motorcycle so bad that he told his mother and father not to give him anything for his birthday, gifts except money. He was saving it for his motorcycle. He told him not to get him anything for Christmas. He just wanted money because he was saving it for his motorcycle. Any special occasion, he said, don't buy me gifts. Just give me some money, whatever you give me, and because I want to save up and buy a motorcycle. Well, he stuck to that because he really wanted a motorcycle. They were very popular. So many of us wanted them, and most everybody's mothers did not want us to have them. But nonetheless, he kept saving. I think it took him a couple of years. And he had saved up close to enough of the amount to get a new motorcycle. It wasn't quite there when Christmas rolled around in 1971. And he didn't quite have enough. But so he knew he wouldn't get it for Christmas of 71. So anyhow, he had his money hid in his drawer where only he thought that he knew where it was. And so he went to bed that Christmas Eve, not knowing what had happened. And actually what had happened before he went to bed, various things had been taking place. But anyhow, Christmas Eve, back up just a little bit. At Christmas Eve, his mom and dad said, Mitchell, we're going to see Grandma tonight and have a supper with her and open gifts. He said, great. So they left and went to the grandma's house and had a wonderful evening, a wonderful meal, opened gifts, and gave their grandmas lots of hugs, and then came on home. Well, he went to bed, wondering what he would get for Christmas or how much money he'd get for Christmas that year, because he had really told his mom and dad, don't buy me any presents. I just want money to put on my motorcycle. And so he didn't expect any gifts under the tree. All he expected was to have some money there. A Christmas morning, 1971, he woke up early, of course, as young guys do, and he first thought, hey, I need to check my money and count my money so I can see how much I've got and see how much I get. So he runs to the drawer, he pulls open his drawer, pulls out his stash, but guess what? His stash was gone. The money was gone. He thought, oh no, somebody's broke in the house or was gone to Grandma's and stole Christmas. He's thinking the Grinch has stole my motorcycle money for Christmas. And he was really upset. He's, oh boy, this is terrible. And then his heart's really taking a big nosedive, and he's really dragging the bottom. He walks slowly into the living room, and he looks at the Christmas tree, and his heart is sad because he don't see any presents there. He doesn't see any envelope or anything there with his name on it. And I don't even get anything for Christmas. He sat down beside the tree and looked at the sparkling bulbs on it. And as he looked, he noticed something unique hanging on the tree, and it looked like a key. He got up, walked to the tree, and looked, and there was a key. That minute, he knew exactly what it was. It was a Yamaha key. He yanked the key off the tree, knowing exactly where the bike would be. He ran down the stairs into the basement, and sure enough, there sat a brand new 1971 Yamaha 250 DT1. A very, very popular bike. And he couldn't believe it. There it was. And then his heart began to race back up again, thinking, now I know what has happened. He said, I know what has happened. And to come to find out, his mom and daddy took his money and they added the amount to it that was needed. And they had been to the motorcycle shop, and they got it worked out with Joe and Bunny to bring the bike that Christmas Eve night and deliver it in the basement. And they planned to stay out late so they'd have plenty of time. And so he wouldn't go in the basement before bedtime. And it had all worked. The plan had worked. Mitchell sat on the bike. He was thrilled to death to get that motorcycle. His very first, and a brand new motorcycle, a Yamaha. And still a valuable bike to this day. And he was just elated beyond compare. And he said that was always his most popular Christmas growing up. Getting that motorcycle meant so much to him. Well, that's one of his Christmases. I'll tell you about another one of Mitchell's Christmases. As life went on and years began to pass, as they do for all people, Mitch got married and actually had a daughter, and he was blessed to have a daughter. More years passed. Mitchell had other bikes. He raced bikes, and life went on. The girl grew up, and Mitchell began to collect motorcycles versus racing them. A popular type guy. He had a lot of friends. And Mitchell, by the way, was a Christian. He trusted in the Lord Jesus Christ. But anyhow, as time began to pass, Mitchell got to feeling bad one day. He went to see the doctor. And the doctor looked at him, did some tests, and said, you need to go to the hospital now. So he went to the hospital about a year and a half ago, and the doctors finally told him, you've got leukemia, and said, it's very serious. We need to start treatments on you now. And so anyhow, they did the treatments, but nothing helped. Mitchell only grew worse and worse. And eventually he knew his days were up. And as time passed, he tried everything they had for him. Nothing seemed to work. His wife, I don't know what happened to her, but she was gone. And the only one left to help take care of him was his daughter, who did so. And she did help him, and she helped him a lot. But nonetheless, Mitchell grew worse, and he could not seem to get better. The doctors did all they could. They tried all kinds of new trial stuff they had for leukemia. Nothing worked. Nothing at all worked. And he knew that it wasn't long until he would die. One day, he was laying on the hospital bed, and he got to thinking about his life and what it had amounted to and what good that he had ever done in his life. And he got to thinking about, well, he had never achieved a whole lot, and that he just felt like, well, life was kind of had a sad note to it. And it just began to overtake him. His depression seemed to grow, and he didn't really know what to think about. Here he was at the very end. He couldn't go on, and yet he wished that he had done better in life, and that life had been better to him. And he got to thinking, really, life has been kind of awful in a way. Here I am, still a young man, and here I am ready to die and going to die. And so the thoughts overwhelmed him on the negative side of things about how life had been to him. He thought, boy, here my wife is gone, my health is gone, and I have no monies to speak of, and it's just a kind of a rough life. Well, as he laid there, and others were praying for him, but then a light from another world seemed to cross his mind and into his heart, and to bring to mind some of the good things in life that he had had. And he got to thinking back at the time when his parents had helped him get that first motorcycle, and he thought, boy, that was great, wasn't it? And then he began to think about the baby daughter that was born, and had watched her grow up, and had the thrill of seeing her step out on life on her own. And then he thought about some of the friends that he had and some of the motorcycle races he competed in. So he began to think, and the memory began to come back to him, thinking about the good days that he'd had. Many good days, he thought. He had had strength to work and strength to do lots of things. His parents had loved him, and he got to thinking, well, things are not really as bad as I thought. And then he began to wonder about his eternal rewards when he met God. And then it crossed his mind that the judge of all the earth would certainly do right to him, and that for any good that he had done, the Lord had kept notice of that. From even a cup of cold water that he had given, any dollars he had given, that the Lord had kept a record of that. And as he began to think about that and to remember that the judge of all the earth would do right to him when he stood before him, when he began to think about all these things, his heart was elated, and his heart began to be very happy about all this. And the more he thought about it, he became actually overwhelmed about the goodness of God in his life. His life had counted for something, because God had used him in various things. As they might have been, the Lord had used him in various things. And so he was blessed. And as he laid there thinking about all that, it came to his mind, and he finally said, yes, what a wonderful life this had been. Well, that's my friend Mitchell that I'll tell you about. And this Christmas, he's in heaven with the Lord, and I'm sure it's a better time for him than it was ever before.